The child they yearned for. The operating room was quiet. Too quiet. A man lay beneath the bright surgical lights, his eyes slowly closing as the anesthetic began to take effect. Standing above him was a woman in surgical scrubs. Her eyes moved across his face for a moment. She wasn't looking at a patient. She was looking at her father, the man who had carried her when she was a baby, the man who had stayed awake through her endless crying, the man who had held her hand when she was afraid, the man who had stood beside her through every difficult moment of her life. And now, at 32 years old, she was about to operate on him. His breathing became slower, his mind began to drift, and as darkness slowly approached, his entire life seemed to flash before him. He saw a 19-year-old girl standing beside him on their wedding day. She was young, so was he. She was 19, he was 23. Neither of them knew what the next 38 years would bring. They only knew that they loved each other. They built a small home together. They worked, they dreamed, and eventually, like many young couples, they began dreaming about children. At first, they waited patiently. 1 year passed, then another. Then another. They visited doctors. They prayed. They tried treatments. They heard encouraging words, then disappointing ones. Month after month, they waited for the news they desperately wanted, but the baby never came. Friends who had married after them began having children, then grandchildren. Family gatherings became increasingly difficult. People asked questions. When are you two going to give us a baby? They smiled politely, but every question left another wound. After years of trying, they finally reached a point where they were exhausted, not because they had stopped wanting a child, but because they had stopped believing one would come. One evening, his wife sat across from him at the dinner table. Her eyes were full of tears. She took his hand. Maybe we should adopt. He looked at her for a long moment. Then he squeezed her hand. Maybe our child is already somewhere waiting for us. And that was the beginning of their journey. They began the adoption process. They didn't know what kind of child they would receive. They didn't care. They only knew they had love to give. Then one day they received a call. There was a baby, a little girl. Her biological mother was a woman struggling deeply with mental illness and circumstances that had left her unable to care for the child. The circumstances surrounding the baby's birth were painful and complicated. But when the couple saw that tiny baby, none of that mattered. She was beautiful, small, fragile, and completely unaware of the life she was about to enter. The woman held her first. Then she passed the baby to her husband. He looked down at the little face. The baby opened her eyes, and something inside him broke open. After years of waiting, after years of wondering, he finally whispered, "My daughter." They took her home, and the first few months were not easy. She cried through the nights. They barely slept. There were nights when the father would walk around the house with her in his arms until sunrise. His wife would sit beside him, exhausted. Sometimes they would laugh. Sometimes they would cry. Sometimes they wondered if they were doing everything right. But they never wondered whether they loved her. That part was easy. They loved her completely. As she grew older, she became the center of their world. She was curious, intelligent, kind, and stubborn. Very stubborn. She filled their home with noise and laughter. For the first time, the house that had once felt painfully empty felt alive. But outside their home, people talked. Some neighbors knew she had been adopted. Some whispered about her biological mother. Others made cruel comments about where she had come from. Her parents tried to protect her. They wanted her childhood to be normal. And for many years it was, until one afternoon, when she was 16, she overheard two women talking. She doesn't even know the truth. One day she'll find out. She froze. That evening she confronted her parents. "Am I adopted?" The house became silent. Her mother began to cry. Her father reached for her hand. "Yes." She pulled her hand away. For the first time in her life, she felt as though the ground beneath her had disappeared. She asked questions. So many questions. Who was my real mother? Why didn't she keep me? Why did you choose me? Her parents answered as honestly as they could. Her father looked directly into her eyes. "We didn't choose you because we felt sorry for you." He paused. "We chose you because we loved you. But 16-year-old Payne doesn't always understand love." For a while, she became distant. She struggled with anger. She wondered whether she truly belonged. Then one night, She found her father sitting alone in the living room. She sat beside him. After several minutes, she whispered, "Dad? Did you ever wish you had your own child?" He looked at her, then smiled. "I did have a child." She looked confused. He touched her hand. "You." That was the moment something changed. She finally understood. Biology had given her a beginning, but these two people had given her a childhood, a home, education, security, love, a family. And slowly she stopped asking who her real parents were. Because she realized something. Real parents are not always the people who give you life. Sometimes they are the people who spend their lives giving you theirs. If you're enjoying this story, don't forget to subscribe. It means a lot and helps us continue sharing stories like this with you. She became an excellent student. Then she entered medical school. Her parents were unbelievably proud. Her father attended every graduation ceremony he could. He told anyone who would listen, "My daughter is going to be a doctor." And eventually, she became one. Not just a doctor, a surgeon, a respected, disciplined, compassionate young woman. At 32, she had become the kind of woman her parents had once prayed for. And her father? He had become an older man. 38 years had passed since the day he married the 19-year-old girl he loved. They had grown old together. They had built a life together. And their little adopted baby had become the greatest blessing of that life. Then one morning, everything changed. Her father collapsed. The test came back. He needed surgery, a complicated one. His condition was serious. His wife sat beside him in the hospital room, holding his hand. Their daughter stood at the foot of the bed. She read through his medical file. Then she looked at him. "Dad," he smiled. "Don't look so worried, doctor." She tried to smile back, but inside she was terrified. He reached for her hand. "You were worth every sleepless night." Her eyes filled with tears. "Don't say that." He smiled. "I'm just reminding you." The day of the surgery arrived. His wife sat in the hospital lobby. 38 years of marriage had taught her how to pray through fear. She closed her eyes. She prayed for the husband she had married at 19. And she prayed for the daughter standing between them in the operating room, because she believed in both of them. Inside the theater, the surgical team prepared. Her daughter stood beside the operating table. She looked down at her father's face. For just a second, she wasn't a surgeon. She was that little girl he had carried through the night. She remembered his voice, his hands, his patience, his love. The anesthesiologist began counting. 10. Her father closed his eyes. 9. His breathing slowed. 8. His mind drifted back to the day he first held her. 7. He remembered the little baby who had changed everything. 6. He remembered her first day of school. 5. Her graduation. 4. The day she became a doctor. 3. The day she became a surgeon. 2. He opened his eyes one last time and looked at the woman standing beside him. His daughter. He smiled. His voice faded. 1. His eyes closed. Outside, his wife continued praying. Inside, the surgeon looked down at the man who had spent his entire life being her father. She took a breath. She reached for the instrument. The room became completely still. Then came the words, "Scalpel." If this story touched your heart, please subscribe, like, and share it with someone who may need to hear it.